Welcome to Game of Roses. Today we have a very special guest with us. Her parasocial handle is Guided Inspiration. She has 139K Instagram followers, 409K TikTok, 3K YouTube. She's a master voice and speech professor, master Reiki practitioner, meditation guide, an actor, director, dialect coach with a master's in fine arts from the Brown University. She's an expert in analyzing body language. She's made a bunch of viral videos, TikToks, and Instagram reels, analyzing everybody from Baldoni and Blake Lively all the way to RFK and Orange Face himself. Please welcome to the show, Cece Rice.
Wow. Hello.
Thank you for being with us.
Cece. Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me. Thank you for that wonderful and extensive introduction.
It's just the things I could find online. But I got to say, amazing. I'm very impressed. I watched a bunch of your body language videos, and I currently am training some players to go into other games, and I'm training them to augment or even change their natural body language in order to convey truth or deception or whatever. And we will get into that, rest assured. Wow. But before we get into that, I'm curious to just kind of like start off with where you grew up.
Yeah. So I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. Specifically, I'm from a little town called Pittsburgh with no H. And I come from a long line of Pittsburghers, actually. We were counting the other day, and there's 5 generations of us there now, which is crazy.
Whoa.
Yeah. And now I live in
What's keeping them in Pittsburgh?
People don't leave. It's one of the
okay.
One of those places. No, my family is one of the first Black families that was ever in Pittsburgh. So before the census even knew that there were Black people there, my family was already there for, I don't even know how long. So we've just kind of stayed. And actually none of us live in Pittsburgh proper anymore, even though my grandmother has a home there, but we all live still very close and around and are always there. So yeah, it's very close to Oakland where I live now, which is sort of my I'm calling it my second chapter of life achievement, to live in a place that feels so me. I lived in New York for a really long time, and I love New York and I'm obsessed with New York, but New York is aspirational to me. It makes me like go this way. Yeah. It's my Mars energy. Oakland is who I am already, you know?
I see.
I fully identify with that. I lived in Oakland the first year of my life. I was born in San Francisco, and I went to Berkeley for college. And
Me too.
I feel wait, what? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I very much feel like the Bay is my, it's like my soul city. It's like, I just never felt so much like, oh, I like being surrounded by hippies. It's very nice.
I mean, it's kind of great.
Yeah.
Growing up in a suburb of Dallas, Texas, I was surrounded by 0 hippies. But as soon as I graduated high school, I came to Los Angeles, and I've never looked back, for what it's worth.
Yeah. We got a lot of hippies in LA too.
That is true. A different kind maybe than the Bay Area, but they qualify.
Yeah, the ones who can't handle the rain and the cold. Me.
Same. Me too.
I would not go to class at Berkeley when it was raining. I melted. Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Cece. What did you watch TV as a kid? If so, what kind? Was reality TV in this mix?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I always say I was raised by the television, and I'm an actor. So growing up, I watched a lot of TV, and turning on the television was, I don't know who turned on the television in my house because it was always on.
Same.
You're like, wait, it had an off switch?
Yeah. Like your schedule was what show was coming up and whose turn it was to pick the show. And I watched a lot of In Living Color. My dream of life was to be on In Living Color, which I sort of achieved in a certain way. I did an improv comedy show with Allie Wentworth, who got her start on In Living Color. And that happened very randomly. The world just brought us together, and I was her nanny for many years. And then we started, she asked me if I wanted to work on the show with her, and we did. So crazy
That's
things
a
like
good
that
nanny
happen.
Yeah, that is
gig.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I loved reality TV. Basically, from the start, I watched a lot of Real World and Road Rules.
Yes. Yes.
And trying to think of what the other like really early things, like even Star Search kind of felt like reality TV to
It
me in
was,
a
of course
certain
it
way,
is.
you know?
I watched Star
Um,
Search every goddamn week because you were tuning in to see like, who's going to make it? Did you ever watch Star Search? Is that before your time, Lizzie?
What is Star Search?
Oh my
It sounds
God.
familiar. I feel like you probably told me
I'm
about
too old.
It was like American Idol, but for like, they'd have a different group of people on every show. And then sometimes you'd come back if you were the winner, people would challenge you. It was
like a head-to-head
Beyonce was
competition.
on.
So they had like stand-up comedians, singers, dancers, like all kinds of stuff. And they would have like 2 stand-up comedians go head-to-head, and the audience would vote, giving them, in quotes, stars. And whoever got the highest score, like a 3.5 versus a perfect 4 stars, the 4-star person would come back. And I can't remember if anybody super big came out of that system. Like, was there a Kelly Clarkson of Star Search?
I mean, Beyonce and Girls Time, I think they were on Star Search, but they didn't get
as
big
little kids
from that as kids.
Beyonce was on it? Oh my God.
Yeah, the first group that she had when they were like 10 years old or something, they were on, and they didn't win. I don't think they won.
Right, of course.
Oh, sounds like it was a racket.
That's what fueled her fire.
Didn't see the real stars.
They were finding themselves, but I think they lost to like, a middle-aged guy or something.
Wasn't that always the way in the mid 80s?
Something. Yeah, exactly. Very strange. But there were people, I think if you go back, there's more people that made it than we realize.
Probably, yeah.
I know like Countess Vaughn. I don't know if you know her. She was on Moesha all those years ago. She was a Star Search winner. She won several times and was got challenged a lot.
God.
So yeah.
Interesting. I had no memory of that. But I do remember Real World. I applied for it once, sent in my little videotape when I was like 24, whatever the age cutoff was. I was like, I better do it now. And obviously heard nothing. But yeah, Real World was in this era anyway. What we call that show is second wave. So basically like how we break apart reality TV is first wave is from 1947 to approximately 1993. That was Candid Camera all the way through things like This American Family on PBS. If you ever saw that, it had the first openly gay character in a reality show, the son of that family. But yeah, then in 1992, I believe, or 93, depending on who you ask, Real World came out on MTV, which was a ripoff of a format from Denmark called Number 28. And that was the first time that you had people direct addressing a camera in interstitials where they were talking in interviews about the footage that you had seen. And that has lasted until basically 3 or 4 years ago with what we call third wave, which is shows like Traitors, House of Villains, Special Forces World's Toughest Test, where these shows bring in competitors from a bunch of different reality franchises to kind of face off in a mixed martial arts of like whose reality TV training is the best for these weird psychosocial dynamics games. All that said, the other stuff that you do, you don't just watch reality TV. You're into a lot of kind of energy and manifestation and these things that, people might consider woo-woo. How did you get into that?
Yeah. So from being an actor, I went to grad school at Brown. And when you're in grad school, Ivy League, which wasn't the deal that people probably think it is in these kinds of programs, because you're in a conservatory. So you spend your time with the same 15 people for 3 years and you can tell each other by scent. I'm not even exaggerating. You spend so much time rolling on the floor blindfolded that you know everyone's body and you know who's walking up the stairs by their gate. I mean, so that in that world, you take courses in voice and speech. And I became the voice and speech TA when I was at Brown, which meant at that time, because my teacher was really on his rise, he started working with some big name celebrities and was going out on gigs a bunch. And so I started taking over and teaching some of his classes up at the undergrad program at Brown.
Mhm.
And when you're teaching voice and speech, it's soul work. It's teaching people how to find their authentic voice, how to breathe, how to move, how to use language, how to tell a story, how to connect to an audience, how to look people in the eyes and keep breathing and stay grounded. And from that,
I think I need this.
I think everybody does.
I'm like, wait, I'm holding my breath.
Exactly. And what I learned from that work was that my students, I started teaching after graduate school at a high school for performing arts in New York City. And I taught there for 10 years. I had students from middle school all the way up to seniors in high school. And I had many of them every year that they were in the program.
Mhm.
And so I knew these kids really well. Then I started teaching in master's programs and then undergrad programs. And I was doing dialect coaching in regional theaters all over the place. And all of the actors I worked with kept saying, regular people need this. Everybody
Mhm.
needs to learn how to do this. What is this that you're doing? And I was privately reading a lot of books about energy centers and
Mhm.
learning what chakras meant, because I was in my work with my students. I could tell, oh, this kind of trauma affects this, and their voices sound like that. And this
Wow.
person with this high
Whoa.
pitched voice, every person I work with who has that sound has had this same kind of trauma. And I
Oh my
started to
God.
just draw these correlations. And I was doing yoga and I was doing all of these things, doing a lot of work with the tree of life. I was looking at a lot of tarot, and I started to realize the Hermetic code, it's all the same system. It's exactly the same things. What lives in the root is cross cultural, it's across time, it's human design, it's astrology, it's tarot, it's all the same system. And it's also the human body, which is a tree. We've got our branches, we've got our roots, we've got our trunk. And the way things move through us, we connect to the spirit realm up here, and we connect to our ancestry and the earth down there. And so when those pieces started to click for me,
Mhm.
I started to just try things with my acting students, and they started changing and
Oh my
becoming
God.
more empathetic and being able to read one another and see when somebody was
Wow.
holding and what they were holding. And I thought, okay, there's something to this. And so I never, I started to study Reiki, and I became a Reiki master, and I started to practice, and then I started to just bring it into my classrooms.
Mhm.
So I was teaching a class called Energy, Balance, and Breath at NYU in their master's program. And it was the first time that I had been told, teach whatever you want to teach, however you want to teach it. And I thought, I want to teach these actors how to connect to their energy, how to change the energy in a
Mhm.
room. How do you turn yourself into the brightest light in the room? And how do you turn your light off? And that to me seemed the most useful thing, both in an acting program and
Mhm.
in the real world. And so the woo-woo stuff for me is also really concrete. It lives
Totally.
in the body. It lives in the voice. It's palpable. There's a system. And
Mhm.
so as much as people are like, oh, this is not scientific. Well,
I agree with you 100%.
that's really only because science can't
Yes.
figure out how to make us the same enough to do what a human can do. So it's the one advantage we have over computers and the elements and, Petri dishes. We are all so different
Mhm.
that we are the best readers of one another. Science can't quite do what we can do.
Yeah. I mean, for my entire life, not entire life, I would say till my late 30s. I am now in my late 40s. I was completely and
You already knew
only.
from your voice.
What's that?
You already knew from your voice.
Yeah. And all of my hidden traumas. Tell me about my mom. No, but I was
Only
like,
it worked like that. But
yeah.
yeah.
How do I talk to my father again? How do I make him love me? I was like, really, only into materialism. I thought there was nothing beyond what could be measured and studied and blah, blah, blah. And then somewhere in my late 30s, I had always been like, at least on an amateur level, very interested in physics and theoretical physics and, kind of what scientists think the universe is and all that.
Yeah.
But in the last like 10 years, there has been this huge shift in the physics community, specifically quantum physics, where like there are certain things that are beyond human measurement. If you go down to a very small scale, the Planck length, basically, and you try to measure something below that, it just like doesn't exist. And there are all these new kind of things coming out that are like linking quantum physics to human consciousness. And it just sent me down a kind of path of self-discovery, reading books, whatever. And now I'm like, 100% fully convinced the woo-woo shit is 100% real. There is potentially scientific basis for it if we can ever figure out how to measure these things and have the scientific community like take it seriously, because I think there's still a huge stigma against it. As like, if a scientist says, I believe that you can have an out-of-body experience, that person will be relegated to the trash heap of modern science. But I think a corner may be getting turned there a little bit.
Oh, yes. We're launching into a whole new realm. I mean, this is what the Age of Aquarius business is all about. Like, yes, we are at the almost to start of this new age, but this is what will shift it. That there will be so many things that we realize we can't explain in the way that we used to, that we have to start looking at them differently. And when you study something, think about the parameters of that. You have to take people that are all similar enough in order to prove that they're all having the same experience because of the same thing. And that is almost impossible to do already. Yeah. Even when we're trying drug trials, we don't even really do a good job of it. We take like men 50 to 70 and we say, yeah that should work for everybody. And we call that science.
I'm almost there. I'm almost in the demographic.
So when it comes down to it,
I know we're just finding out tampons are poisonous and stuff. Like we haven't studied anything on women.
Right. Exactly. So
I think they might be more in touch with some of the stuff going on, perhaps.
Yeah. I've recently been doing, have you heard of this? Let me just ask you this. Have you heard of Gateway?
Gateway. Okay. Is that
Does this ring any bells?
Yes, it does. Is this the thing where you listen to the tapes and okay. Yes.
And it's basically designed by this dude who had an out-of-body experience back in the 50s, I think. And he was an audio engineer. So he designed this thing which like hits your ears with two different sounds, these tones that are 10 hertz apart. And the part that's missing basically gets your brain into this pattern that they call hemisync. I have been doing this on and off more regularly recently for 2 or 3 years, I guess, at this point. And I'm starting to see things. I'm definitely starting to have bizarre experiences, and I'm enjoying it, to say the least. But I'm trying to have an out-of-body experience. Can you help me? How do I do this?
Okay. Funnily enough, I was talking to one of my favorite metaphysical friends about this recently, because he's trying to get me on the tapes and the whole thing. So,
hell yeah. You should do it. If you haven't done it, you should at least do it once. It's wild.
Yeah. I mean, oddly enough, I don't need as much help as others, but
interesting.
So it all depends on how you find your way. Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in this system, I believe they believe that essentially you have to provoke a paralytic sleep state where your body, right? So you're experiencing that separation of mind and body because the body is essentially frozen. You can induce that without actually being asleep and without actually being in that full sleep paralysis. Okay. Non-sleep paralysis. So one of the ways that we learn to do this, mediumship does something very similar, right? And what you essentially do with mediumship is you find the position or the habit that your body needs to go into in order to evoke that split that happens where your consciousness separates from just your physical being. And so this is maybe a lot of information, but
no,
for
please,
me,
I need it.
I am the kind of person that I meditate only lying down in a position called semi-supine, which Alexander technique is basically built on. It's a
and what does your body
alignment.
look like when you're in that semi-supine position?
So full supine is like this, right? Starfish.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Semi-supine, you fold the arms in, rest them on the rib cage, and then you put the feet flat on the floor. So your knees are pointing up.
I see.
And then you put a little lift under your head so that your spine comes into full alignment. Now that is one way that you can have some out of body experiences, because what happens is you start to, everything can communicate up and down the nervous system, basically uninhibited. If you practice enough and you get your body to a space where it relaxes enough and you start to experience a bit of euphoria, you start to experience this lower back where your tailbone is starts to kind of open up like a portal, and you start to feel this heat connection.
I've gotten to this point.
Okay.
Now, and I've also gotten to a point which I think is like, I've been reading a little bit about Kundalini recently, and I think I can do this. I think I can get the shit going and travel it up the spine and feel the explosion in the head. I can do those things. And I think, though, for my meditation, I'm not doing this exact body pose, but what you're talking about reminds me of this book that I just recently read called Chasing the Wild Pendulum. Have you read this?
Okay. No, I have not.
It basically talks about how the body creates these kind of pulses, these waves, your heartbeat, your lungs, your neurons firing, the electrical systems firing off, and that there are interference patterns. But when you physically straighten your body out and lower your heart rate and your breathing rate, it starts to get rid of the interference patterns, because basically like your blood is being pumped out of one ventricle, taken in through another one. And as the blood is moving, it's hitting your breathing waves or your electric waves, and that creates interference. But if you can slow it all down, it like all starts to kind of come into a unified vibration or whatever. At least that's what this book says.
Well, that I would say that based on my experience, that is exactly what you're doing. That's the interesting thing about breaking it down into the science, is that you can know that and not know how to do it.
Exactly.
And you can know how to do it and not know that.
Yes.
And so that, to me, that's the interesting piece of it. So where you have to go next is into the space where you learn how to listen to the other frequencies. Okay. Where you start to be able to say, this is where mediumship really comes in, is that what you're listening for, it's like digging to the back of a closet, even though there's a whole bunch of stuff in the front of the closet that's in your way. Okay. Or think about it like this, listening to the lowest note in classical music, even though there's a bunch of high pitched notes and flutes and stuff in the front that are really easy to hear. But if you can go around that and tune into the deeper layer, that is where you start to be able to alternate frequency. And then you start to be able to figure out how to connect that to your inner sight, so that you are collecting the information from where it is that you're going, so that you're actually recording it. So you're going to those places, but you're not actually recording it in your third eye, because you haven't learned how to see on that plane yet. Even if you've learned how to feel on it, even if you felt the explosion, you're connected to it, but you're not yet walking around with sight.
Yeah. And I think I'm getting closer to that. I've had some things where, like, vis-a-vis the sleep paralysis, this is like a couple weeks ago, I was having a dream about spiders. I woke up in my bedroom and I'm looking at my window at the curtains. I see the spiders from my dream. When my eyes open, the dream fades away, but the spiders are still there. They then dematerialize into this kind of black mist that forms a humanoid thing in my room, just staring at me. And I was like, this is it. I'm getting there. And I tried to hold that as long as I could, but then it dissipated maybe after 10 seconds or something. But I'm like, I think I'm starting to pierce through some shit, you know?
Yeah. So one of the things you want to do, and this is a thing that doesn't get talked about enough, when you start astral planing or leaving your body or doing any of this stuff, you want to make a commitment to yourself before you go that your plan is to come back.
Okay.
Okay. Otherwise, what happens is
otherwise I have to do the podcast alone, Chad.
Yeah.
You gotta come
Honestly,
back.
because here's the thing. When you find it, you are going to have so much fun.
Yeah.
And it will be so much better than this reality that people's brains break. And you go into spiritual psychosis, and you notice when people go into that thing of they're just like not quite back, they're living in the haze between.
Yeah.
It's because they made no commitment to come back.
Okay.
As crazy as that might sound, it's necessary.
No, it doesn't sound crazy at all, because for a long time, I've been doing, this is prior to me reading about any of this stuff. I would get super high and go get a 90-minute deep tissue massage while I listen to theta wave music. Like, I've been doing this for a long damn time. And in those 90 minutes, and I mean, I know it's like drug fueled and I'm listening to the binaural beats and stuff, but like, I definitely am some
Sunday fun day stuff.
That to me is like church, you know, like some people do whatever they're doing for their spiritual shit. That was what that is for me. But definitely in those moments, it's like I'm not there and shit is just coming into my brain or whatever, my consciousness, whatever you want to call it. I don't know where the hell it's coming from, but I love it. It is like watching the best version of a movie, a painting, a song, all kind of rolled into one. And sometimes I have memories of it, but it's more just about like kind of having nothing to do with myself. And it's just like, what are all these things that I'm seeing or hearing or feeling? I absolutely love that. So I get what you're saying. Like, I don't ever want to come out of those 90-minute massages, you know, when I have to wake up out of that, I'm like, this is bullshit. Can I please go back?
Yeah. You know what also helps? Having a purpose. Where are you going? What's your intention? A lot of times people just want to like walk around.
Yeah.
But I actually think having intention makes it so much easier. That's why mediumship works the way that it works, because you're trying to tune into somebody's frequency and their family pattern or the energies around them. It's focused. And so when it happens, you can get confirmation, right? If I'm seeing, you know, a ring of ladies in white surrounding you, that is something that I can bring back and confirm with you based on whatever you experience. Right. So having that focus also really helps.
I sometimes do a thing when I'm starting to do gateway. I'll just kind of repeat in my head this little mantra I made up. And I don't know if it is like, here's the thing. I don't know if any of this shit is actually working or if it's just my brain going crazy or what, but as I'm going into it, I always say just this multiple times: show me what needs to be seen. And I don't try to put any personal thing on it or anything, just like whatever that brings me, allow that to happen. And I have seen some weird fucking shit that is crystal clear. Like I'm in the fucking room with these people. I don't know who they are or like why I'm seeing it, but I'm seeing license plates, buildings, a family making dinner. And it's like I'm there. Like I don't know. And I don't know what it is. Am I on the right path? Am I going to get lost in the sauce and be living in the haze? What's happening?
Well, go to the haze.
This is why you need to work with intention, because if you say, show me what needs to be seen, that's a very open thing. And you're going to get an omniscient dump, basically. You're going to get this smattering of things. But if you say, I'm trying to tune into this object from ancient Egypt, and I'm putting my focus on that and I'm connecting myself to that frequency into that space and take me there, then you have context for what you're seeing and you can confirm what you see. So when you bring things back, then you can go in the real world and say, well, what is this? What does this mean? How is this useful? How is that pattern or that code or that symbol? You know, the more you study symbology, the easier it gets to communicate on the other side. If you really have a deep understanding of what spiders mean, guess what? Spiders are going to show up for you more because now the universe knows you speak that language.
Right.
So study the birds, study the numbers. This is why people study angel numbers and then they start seeing them everywhere. It's like, you just said, I now know how this works. I now know what this means. And so now when the universe has that message for you, it knows you get it.
Yeah. Have you ever had an out-of-body experience? Or let me ask you this. What was the first time you heard that note in the background that you're talking about, or dug through the closet and found the old pair of shoes?
You know, Okay, so I have ADHD, and so if you couldn't tell by my videos, so the way that things work for me is that I have always been able to take in multiple pieces of information at one time, and they kind of just layer in my mind. So I'm very often watching something on TV, listening to something on Instagram, and reading something at the same time. And I'm perfectly capable of separating each one and tuning into what I need to at what time.
Yeah.
The first time I was asked to do it was actually in a mediumship course that I was told to come to because I had a reading, and the medium was like, "You know that you're an intuitive, right?" And I was like, "Well, do I?
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I feel like I have intuition about things. I feel like I can touch people and know things, but I never had given it any credence, right? I never really honored it. I never worked at it. I had no discipline around it. And so I started taking this class. And one of the exercises that she has us do is exactly that, listening to music and digging and finding or looking at a pattern and then going away from it and just letting your mind tell you what it tells you, or looking at a person in the class and asking the question about what do they need to know right now? What do they need to have confirmed? And then listening and learning to listen and learning where to listen from. That is not here. It's deep.
It's interesting you're pointing to the back of your head. So you think there's a physical location in your body, like there's some part of your brain potentially that is the receiver for the signal?
So in the work that I do, in a lot of my videos, I talk about the Alta Major a lot.
Okay.
It's called the Alta Major, but it's a minor chakra, but in my work, it is the most important. It is essentially the fulcrum, right? It is the space between thought and action. It is where brain becomes spine, right? It is where the signal gets sent. And in the metaphysical world, the Alta Major's nickname is the gate of heaven or the mouth of God. And the mouth of God is balanced with the human mouth when it is accessed. And so if it's closed, we get arrogance, just the human mouth. We get no connection to the spirit realm. Everything's out of whack. Balance is gone, right? When the Alta Major is open and we learn to receive through that space, once again, look at that center line, right? You're connected. Messages can come straight through, and it's because you're open here, and that balances everything else out. And so when you start to tune in and listen to that space, it's where the old brain is. It's where the intuitive space, before we had the logical brain, before we could read, before we could talk, we were able to connect somehow. And we've switched our function to privilege the front, right? The frontal lobe. But actually, all of the stuff that is vibratory, the medulla feels vibration. It's how you feel that avalanche so that you know to run, right? All that stuff is connected. The same thing is true. Vibratory frequency is everything, right? What did Tesla say? So if that's where we feel vibration and that's where we sense vibration, it's also, very close to the occipital lobe, which is connected to sight on this side. It's all back here. So there is a physical space where we hear and see and feel, and we know that. Just like our dreams aren't happening like in our head, but they kind of are.
Yeah.
Right.
A little
when
bit.
we talk about it, it's there, but it's also happening in our body. We feel it.
Totally.
Dreams are one of the biggest argument to me of like, we know nothing. Like, we have no idea what is going on here. I would say I didn't even hear the term materialism until Chad and I did the telepathy tapes. And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess Yeah, that is weird. And it's only the stuff we can physically measure, but we're only seeing this tiny piece of what is actually the physical reality.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I've always thought of myself as woo woo, but I'm getting more woo woo.
I'm the most woo woo I've ever been in my life at this point.
Yeah.
I'm literally trying to leave my body and never come back.
Yeah,
I am
are.
seeing creatures in my bedroom. Like I've never experienced this stuff before, but I also am finding that like once you're open to it, once you can get rid of that kind of closed-minded way of thinking, the shit just starts happening. And it is something about, you know, you were talking about vibrations. I read a lot of books that were kind of saying, you know, physical matter isn't actually real. If you get down on a small enough scale, it's subatomic particles popping in and out of existence. And they themselves are basically frequencies that only take physical form in certain positions. So it's like we're all just kind of reflections of some vibration of something else, maybe a realm of consciousness that is kind of the underlying foundation to reality. We don't know. With that said, let me ask you this. What do you think reality is? What do you think any of this shit is?
Oh, I thought you were going to say the season of Love is Blind.
We're going to get to Love is Blind. I promise we're going to get to reality TV. But beyond reality TV, I'm just curious. Like you obviously have a
reality.
you have a huge amount of knowledge about this stuff. I'm just curious to know what you think.
It's an interesting question because so much of the work that I do is about perception, and reality ultimately is what is confirmed by our perceptions. So if it can be confirmed by our perception, then it is reality. Whether it is an agreed upon reality is different, right? This is why people can be living in different realities where they think, you know, the orange man is their savior and other people believe that the orange man is the Antichrist, right? That is a great example of in their reality, both things are absolutely real and true.
Totally.
And so reality is perception. And it actually links directly to reality television, because how are we receiving it? Through the lens of a camera, through the sound of voices, through microphones. There is something being positioned in order to capture a particular point of view that will give us a particular feeling of what that reality is. And then, of course, there's the editor who says, okay, this is relevant. And this is relevant to support what I believe the reality to be based on all of the information I have seen. And so is that reality the same as the point of view of the person who is in it? Never.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not the villain. But you are the villain to us.
Yeah, if we reposition every syllable of the phrase you just said to say, I am the villain, then you are the villain. I couldn't agree with you more about that. But what I'm asking is like, what do you think like this is that we're all in? The collected physical world. What do you think it actually is?
If I think we're in a simulation. is that
I mean, we are in one way or another, depending, you know, some people think we're literally living in a computer simulation, all the way to like, just we all know that what we're perceiving with our five senses, even augmented by certain technological advancements, like we're only perceiving what those five senses can take in. And there are other animals on this planet who perceive this, you know, physical reality, whatever you want to call it, in completely different ways. So we know there are other ways to perceive this, and that what we're actually experiencing is not technically real. But what I mean more is like, what do you think the purpose of this is?
The meaning of life. A small question.
or at least the meaning of this thing that we're in, whether it's a video game or a reflection, a hologram, whatever it may be. Like, what do you think we're supposed to be doing here on an individual basis and collectively, if I may ask?
Absolutely. I mean, this is my favorite thing to talk about. I think
me too.
We are physical beings, and this is very important. This is almost paramount. It's the same reason why I said you have to make the agreement to come back. Okay? Because your purpose here is to experience this physical manifestation of your soul in this time. Okay. And it is particularly about time and space, right? And that the physical reality of it, that we are meant to experience this life in a linear way. We are the ones that are supposed to experience it as a slow moving track. That is our job. There are other beings who are meant to experience life in a more cohesive way. They are meant to observe from the outside, from multiple lifetimes, from multiple soul energies coming together. Now, I also believe that we have a spirit, a body, and a soul. Okay? There's a difference between a soul and a spirit. Your soul is what you leave behind in energy, whether you're alive or you're dead. Okay? Your grandfather's watch has soul energy on it. Your grandparents' house, you walk into it and you still smell them. That's because their energy is still there. You might hear a ghost creaking up and down the stairs. That's their energy that they've deposited here on earth. Spirit is the higher self, the version of your spirit that never comes down to earth, but is always guiding and has a pure outlook. It is the guiding sort of light. It is the thing that keeps you on the spiritual pathway, whereas the soul keeps you safe in the physical body. So the soul is connected to the gut. The soul is connected to the root. It is connected to your fight or flight mechanism to keep the body alive. And when the body goes, the soul stays here on earth connected to all the other souls that it connected to during its lifetime. This is why we feel bad when people pass away, because their energy is still with us, but their body has gone. Their spirit has always existed up there.
Right.
Ruling the best parts of them. So their soul may have experienced this life as an addict, but their spirit is the essence of them that never had that issue.
Yeah.
So we are here to come into these bodies to experience something that allows our soul to level up to its next mission. And different souls have different missions, and different people are parts of the same soul groups and families. So, when you do mediumship work, you can learn what soul group you're part of, right? I am part of a peacemaker soul group. And so I have always been able to talk to people from all different walks of life. I could talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Old man at the park, sign me up. Crazy lady on the side of the street, let's have a conversation. What do you know? First time I ever heard about Bitcoin was on a subway in New York City. This person was clearly having a portal of energy come through them, and they were talking about the future, and they were yelling at everybody on the train, better buy your Bitcoin, like this whole thing. And I was like, what is that? And I looked it up and I was like, this is nuts.
And are you a Bitcoin millionaire now? You were like, I got in when it was $10 a coin because I was receiving a transmission, and
I didn't know what I know now. So
almost none of us did. That's fascinating. At least one of these books that I have read kind of talks about this idea that, and I think science is pointing this way, that basically like consciousness, just some kind of layer of consciousness, a universal consciousness, call it God if you want, is kind of the underpinning of what we view as reality, basically this. And that at least this one book was kind of maintaining that it breaks little pieces of itself off and sends them into this experience to kind of understand itself from different viewpoints. So these little pieces that it breaks off, then that would be akin to what you're calling spirit, basically. And each one of those takes on a literal assignment here in this thing, whatever it is, a simulation or material world, whatever. And they kind of know what it's going to be. This life is going to have these traumas, or it's for this purpose or whatever, because that underlying consciousness needs to know what it is like from this perspective and that perspective and this perspective. So even when you're looking at somebody like Orangeface has a job to do, and that thing might be, a spirit chose that, saying, I will do this so that the greater consciousness can understand what this world is like, I guess, from that perspective, all the way down to, people who live for a day in a war-torn country or something. And I don't know. I just find that like interesting because it lines up with all of the near-death experiences that people have had, that they say they go to the other side. They have a conversation with potentially one of these other kind of entities you're talking about that are like the observers. And they say, well, you got some more work to do. Time for you to go back. And people are like, no, can I just stay here for a minute? And they're like, no, get the fuck back there.
Have you read Many Lives, Many Masters?
Not yet. That is in my list. I have not yet read it.
Ooh. Yeah. Do you have reading recommendations?
Big time. That book made me not afraid of death.
All of this shit has made me not afraid of it too. Up to this point.
I'm so afraid.
Not afraid now.
Yeah, I'm not either.
It vanished.
Same.
I used to have such a fear of death. And then I was like, you know why? When I was a kid, I used to lay in bed at night and think, if when you die, you're not conscious anymore. So like, what is it to not be conscious? Like, so there's going to be a point where I can't think anymore, and it would just keep me up and it would drive me crazy.
Same.
Right? And then I read this book and I was like, oh, I was afraid of that because it's not possible.
Yeah.
I am consciousness.
Yes.
I don't just have consciousness. I am consciousness. And it doesn't go away. And so, I think about this a lot. When people talk about the end of the world, that is a fantasy that we have because we are desperate to stop our consciousness. People want off the ride. Yeah, and so we fantasize about the end of this thing. But like, even if the world ends, which it's not, it might end a lot of human beings because we don't take care of it. But the world's not going to end. That's a fantasy that we have projected because we are afraid of the vastness of our consciousness.
Yeah.
And that book just gave me this perspective of, oh, you just keep leveling and changing, and there are other worlds and there are other experiences, and we can tune into all of them from wherever we are in the pattern if we want to allow it, and if that is part of our soul's purpose.
Yeah.
But I do believe we choose our path and we know what we are going to face. And I think all of us who chose to be here now have a very specific purpose.
Yeah, we fucked up. That's what you're saying.
I really want to live at the same time as Severance and really good TV.
It's like, yeah, exactly.
It's like, I don't know what my purpose is. It's the instructions have not gotten handed down to me very well.
Yeah. You can go back. You'll be at a time when the TV is the best it's ever been. Also, the world's the worst. You want to make that trade-off? Yes, I do. Because I love reality TV.
I gotta see Severance.
Should we? So we haven't even talked about reality TV. In the minutes we have remaining here, I had some clips that I was going to play and maybe roll through them. But I'm honestly kind of curious. I would rather talk to you about this. Do you watch Traitors?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Are you kidding me?
So I am.
I've never made a video about Traitors.
Oh man, that show! It's unreal for body language. I consider myself to be an amateur body language reader, what have you, because in training these players to go into these various games, it's like they need, especially in Traitors, they need to be able to read who is potentially lying to them or a traitor or whatever. So I want to tell you some things that I've come up with that I'm training some people for in my little study guides and see if I'm on the right track or if the things I'm saying are actually bad and I'm harming these players' potential to win this season. So I'm just going to roll through some of these and you tell me what you think. Okay.
Okay. I love this.
I have some nevers and some alwayses for Traitors, no matter if you're a traitor or a faithful.
Okay.
Never be the first person to say anyone's name in any context.
Exactly. Hallelujah.
Okay, fantastic. I'm on the right track. Never be a part of a subgroup. This means there's the whole group of everybody playing the game. Never be part of like the Bambis. Never give yourself a little team name. If you're a traitor or even a faithful, never be one of the people who gets in the three coffins. Never, if you can help it, be brought in a subgroup, because the subgroup I have found always gives suspicion. And once the faithful have that suspicion, they will just kill everybody. They will banish everybody in that subgroup, thinking one of them must be a traitor.
Yeah. I think that that's a good rule.
Okay.
I think there's a way to beat it. I think if you do it, you have to be part of multiple subgroups. So that because then
diffusion.
I think the problem a lot of people have is that they make one alliance, and that's almost certain death on every reality show. You need multiple alliances so that people feel like you are their best friend and that you're not as close to anybody else as you are to them. That's how you play.
All right. I'm amending this.
Make
Never be a part of a
you're
subgroup.
The closest to them.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say
everybody to feel like you're their confidant. So don't talk to people when you're in a group. Only talk to people one-on-one.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the people that I feel like are still in it. Brittany and Sam, like we haven't seen them. Like they're just very much floating by, kind of in the background.
You know what though? I have to say, I mean, I as entertaining as this season of Traitors is, they are not playing with great strategy at all. Like it's actually a total mess.
Absolutely.
They're an absolute disaster. They've made the worst choices about who to kill when. I can't imagine, like, they're not, it's one of the most frustrating things for me to watch when they're just not playing well, even if they're getting away with it. And that's why 3 of the Traitors have gotten banished. And once they've said your name, you're toast. You really think Danielle's going to get to the end and no one's going to suspect?
I think they all suspect her. I mean, this is really the metagame of Traitors. There are 2 metagames being played. One is very broad, and it's about what is happening from season to season and what are the attitudes of incoming players toward Bravo celebrities versus people who are gamers versus the love shows. And I think in season 4, gamers are going to be fucked. Immediately, everyone will want them all out because of what Boston Rob did this season. So any gamers, any Big Brother Survivor Challenge players coming in season 4, they're going to have their work cut out for them. Hopefully I can help in that regard. Let me ask you this. This is some body language stuff. Well, some of this is like language stuff as well. So these are things that I've kind of identified as traitor tells. At the breakfast, when they come in, and I don't know if this could just be editing. We know none of this is real, but they always show the traitors at breakfast performing what I call breakfast nonchalance. So they'll all be sitting there looking at the player board, but then you'll see a traitor be like, oh, are those croissants? Pass me a croissant. And it's like they're more interested in the food and things that have nothing to do with the game, because I think they're trying to convey that it's like, I don't know what's going on. They're always trying to convey confusion.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a thing that they all do. If I was on the show, that would be that exact thing I'd be looking for.
Exactly. Yes.
Who isn't? Here's the thing. I feel like the people that make the best traitors are the people who just in general don't react in any extreme.
Yeah.
You can't be the most curious. And you can't be completely on the sidelines. You have to find someone else's energy to attach to that's a faithful. If the faithfuls look shocked, you need to look shocked. You can't be in a different energy. Danielle can't be having the Holy Ghost on the ground with her hat falling off.
Danielle collapsing on the ground in that hat was iconic.
Yeah. She said, praise Jesus when Carolyn got kicked out. And I agree with you. It's but funny. This is that second metagame is like, if you're a faithful, the game you're really playing, it's far more difficult than a traitor, because you have to identify the traitors and then lie to the traitors to make them believe you don't think they're traitors. Then you also have to mind your P's and Q's around the faithful, because you don't want them to think you're partnering with the traitors once they start to get identified. And you've got to take a known traitor to the very end so you can kick them out and win the game in the final round. It's exceedingly difficult, I think, to be a faithful.
What other things would you suggest that people look for when they're faithfuls looking for traitors or any other game strategy?
You know, I think that you have to get rid of the strongest players as early as possible. The waiting and keeping people around never, ever works. And I think that the way, if you do that, if you're a traitor, you got to get rid of the smartest people, because it breaks up the ability for them to collect information. And so you have to be able to kind of tell when somebody is.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Something messed up on the audio there. I think we lost you for a second.
We can't hear you.
Oh, you're back. You're back. We can hear you now.
You're back.
My light thing went out, and then this thing went out. Sorry. Technical difficulties.
It was the spiders from my dreams.
It really was.
Unplugging your mic.
Don't send your spiders to do that, Chad.
My spiders do what they will. I have no control over my spiders.
The traitors keep people around, in my opinion, for too long.
Thinking it'll be like a human shield type thing if it's like a strong player, you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you want to force them to tell you who the shields are. If you don't keep the strong players around for that, because they're going to eat you. And they don't bring in the alternate, like additional traitors early enough. They should have made somebody a traitor the first chance that they had. And
yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, that surprised me.
That was a big mistake. I mean, I think that they've made mistakes at every single realm. I think Boston Rob, huge mistake. He put himself way too out there. He was way too vocal. It was like he's playing a different game. Traitors is not a game where you just chit chat. You have to learn to be quiet.
Yeah. And you have to learn how to like subtly control the psychosocial dynamic of that group without overtly making that known. I really do think Traitors is like still in its infancy. And so all these players are coming in from the different reality TV disciplines using the tools that made them great in those games. And unfortunately, this game is far more complex than any of the other individual games that are out there. And I think once you get into like season 5, 6, 7, well, I'll just say once you get into season 4, you're going to have some real trained players in that season who have studied, perhaps study guides have been written for them to use. I'll simply say that. And I think it's going to start to become a different game because people are going to be training for that now. It really is like, I was a big fan of mixed martial arts in its infancy. And that used to be pure style versus pure style, no weight classes. So it was like, here's a boxer versus a kung fu guy versus now here's a jiu-jitsu guy. Now all of them do all of it. It's like a true mixed martial arts. And I think you're going to start to see that in Traitors. But I wanted to ask you one other question about body language on Traitors, something I've noticed. When, especially at the round table, the person is revealed and then they cut around the table to see people's reactions of, oh my God, we got another faithful or did we get a traitor or whatever. They always show the traitors almost always hiding their faces. So they'll be like, oh, they'll hide their mouth or they'll be like, oh my God. And that to me is a huge tell that this person doesn't know what micro expressions they should be throwing at that moment. So they just hide it all. Is this correct?
Absolutely correct.
Oh, shit. I'm doing it.
The shielding of the face, hiding of the face is, I mean, the biggest red flag, period. I mean, dating show, whatever it is, if you hide behind your hands, or if you hide your hands, right? Hiding is always a closing action. The biggest thing you can learn about body language is the simplest: open or closed. Are they welcoming something in or keeping something out? Why would you cover your face? Either your instinct is to not display your shock. Well, it's not Miss America and you're trying to keep us from seeing the inside of your mouth. Okay. It's not that's why they're doing it, right? It's like they don't want to be seen like this. So they do that, right? But Traitors, this is exactly the moment when you're supposed to find a faithful and match their expression. That's when you use monkey see, monkey do. Somebody gets eliminated, connect with them and say, oh my God, we're having the same experience. That's how you play the game. You mimic the experience of the faithful if you're a traitor. And if you're a faithful, you stay stupid. You don't tell people your theories. You don't make shots in the dark. You kind of play the game that Tom Sandoval is inadvertently playing because he's.
I think the traitor might be Alan Cumming.
He's not playing stupid. He is literally stupid.
That's why he's still alive. You know
exactly. Those traitors have nothing to fear with him.
Oh my God. I'll never get over that singing challenge with the dolls.
Unreal. It was one of the greatest moments in reality TV history.
It was so good.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about Love is Blind really quickly. I know we've taken a lot of your time already, but
it's so fun.
How much of the body language can be faked? Especially, we're really looking at it for these reveals. I feel like I can tell which couples are maybe going to last based on like their initial attractiveness. What should we be looking for in those reveals to help our predictions?
The reveals, I think, are to be taken a little bit with a grain of salt. They can tell you a lot, but they can only tell you a lot about the moment itself. It cannot tell you a lot about longevity. Okay.
Interesting.
Longevity is determined in the hard parts. So whether it's going to work immediately is determined by that reveal. Is there attraction? Literally what you should be looking at is, are they drawn to one another, or is one person slow walking it and the other person's like, yeah,
totally.
Right? Almost see like, do they end up on the center line, or like how did they to each other? And what's the first thing that they do when they get into contact? When do they look at each other's eyes? Is a big one. Like, are they interested and able to show themselves to the other person? Or does one person go into like being shy and hiding?
Like Virginia did.
Mean that
I thought you were doing Virginia there.
Wow.
She literally turns her head like to a 45-degree angle and is like recoiling from Devin during that. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And that is exactly who I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Is that pulling away and into self. Part of that is that she's very hyper focused on how she's being perceived.
Of course, as they all are.
She's not pouring into him. She's not perceiving him. She's worried about how she's being perceived. So I was thinking about this, I actually watched The Bachelor, because this is my new favorite season of The Bachelor, because I'm in love with Grant.
Ooh.
I mean, who's not? He's the most emotionally available. He's the most
tear play got you.
He's the best bachelor we've ever had. Like,
he certainly has the best wolf tattoo.
I mean, come on. When he was like, I have this tattoo, I was like, please take your shirt off. Oh, you're not going to do it. I'll stop objectifying you. I'm so sorry, sir. He's beautiful because he's kind. Like, there's a million guys who have looked like him on reality TV who I'm like, I am disgusted with you. And he is just open and sweet and kind. And he's an easy person to read because he shuts down when you're not giving him anything. You can't make eye contact. You can't tell me what's wrong. You can't articulate your problem. Bye, girl. And I'm here for that. He wants a communicator. He wants somebody that knows how to be open. I do think he sent his girl home. I think he's going to struggle from there on out.
Oh, shit.
I think first impression Rose was his girl. And
Alex Godden. Yeah, Alex. I do too.
I agree. I thought she was going to be top two.
Me too. Blew it. And he's going to go through confusion for the next several episodes. I can feel it. Because he got rid of the anchor, and he kept the aspirational princess. What's her name? The one he took on, the Scottish princess, Juliana. Yeah. Okay, she's the one that he's like wants to put on a pedestal and change her. The perfect woman who he thinks is out of his league is Latia.
Yep. He from night one, he was like, "You're so beautiful. No one tells you no." Immediately, he's like, "You're way out of my league." The first thing he said to her, at least in the edit, as we saw it, Yeah.
And I think that's why she brought it up later, because she was like, she's looking at him like, can you match me? Can you be a partner with me? And he's like, I want to. And then Zoe is a gamer.
Yeah,
she's
totally.
there to play.
Yeah.
She's blowing my mind this season. She was an early season villain that somehow just completely faded into the shadows of that. Other villains stepped in to take her place. Now she's got a hometown date without even having a one-on-one ever. That's extremely rare. Yeah.
So good.
He's a gamer. So yeah, but I think
he's about Dina. The other top four.
Yeah. And I to me, there's not enough actual social compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not excited enough about any of them and the families. I think people really discount like them showing us how hard he's having a time with the families. That means something. That's not a small thing. You don't get over that easy.
Yeah, we call that the Addams family play, when the family is like against the process itself, where, you know, we have all these different attacks that we've identified: a time attack, values attack, location attack, et cetera, et cetera. And I can't wait to see all those. It looks like Juliana's dad is going to be giving some hardcore values attacks.
Yeah, do not kiss my daughter.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to see that shit. Anyways,
we famously had one Bachelor villain, Tiara Lacauzi, say that she couldn't control her eyebrow as a defense of why she was making certain face play. For the average person, what percentage of the communication they're doing through their body or face do you think that they can control?
Control 100%. Conscious of almost none.
Interesting.
I mean,
okay.
What actors do is we learn how to inhabit an emotion so deeply that the right facial expression shows up. Now, it's not always perfect. And I can kind of tell a bad actor because they're trying to do something, but I'm like, that's not the expression that goes with that feeling, but you're close,
shit.
right? But we absolutely have the ability to connect to what we want to express if we've studied ourselves enough to know what our habits are, what our tells are, what our tics are, where our tension goes, where we hide. And, you know, I have my habits, but I know how to ground myself and breathe and not let that thing show up if I'm around a person that I don't want it to show up for.
Yeah.
If I want to make eye contact because I know this is an important moment to be making eye contact, I can do that. But you can also be like Carolyn and just be like, I can't control my brain. I'm like,
that was such a good impression.
But like she could, even with that, you know, I've taught people who have had a lisp their entire life how to not lisp. And if they think about it, they cannot lisp. If they stop thinking about it and they get relaxed, they'll start lisping.
Yeah.
So we have so much power to communicate in the way that we desire if we are willing to take the time to invest in that. But that's also a slippery slope because that can sometimes lead to the ability to just use that to manipulate. And I mean, we get pretty good at that. I mean, that's what flirting is, right?
Sure.
Oh, I'm going to like look this way and like be cute because I know you'll like that, but I'm not actually interested in you. I'm just doing it because I want to see if you like me, right?
Get a free drink.
It can be right. It can be used. So yeah, we can do everything. I mean, look, the CIA is built on this idea that you can train anybody to become who you want them to be. So we could all do it if we
As
want.
Grocery Store Joe once said on his now defunct podcast, Clickbait, it depends on who you wind up being. He said that famously of people getting bad edits in Bachelor. But Cece,
beautiful.
We cannot thank you enough for joining us. We definitely have to have you back because I want to go through some clips with you of various reality shows to do body language and stuff. But I'm sorry, I just got completely derailed by talking about the fundamental nature of reality.
This was so fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Welcome.
Please tell,
I'm going to go read this book, Many Lives, Many Masters.
What's that?
Read that book, and you got to read my book that's coming out in a couple months.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's called The Root of Awareness. And it is all about tools to ground and grow your physical and vocal communication so that you're able to tell the stories that you want to tell and how to deal with the trauma that you would like to not be showing up in your every interaction. So hopefully it'll be a way to put together all of the things that I've been teaching people in social media videos all into one space. And
that's fantastic.
Where can people find how to pre-order your book? Where can they find more information about you?
Yeah, we're not quite to the pre-order stage yet, though it's probably going to happen really soon. So they can check out my website, guidedinspo.com, to find out more. But the book will be on Amazon. It'll be in all the places. I think it'll be at Target, all the places that we're boycotting. And
nice.
Yeah. Don't bite on the 28.
Some places we aren't. Maybe some places people are still shopping. We'll see. But yeah, it'll be out there.
Awesome.
Yeah, congrats. That's awesome. I can't wait to take a look.
Yeah.
I can't wait to come
and
back.
we'll have to have you back on once
once the book is out, or it's at least pre-ordering, we'll have you back on and we'll go through some clips of various people. I cut all these clips. We didn't even get to them, but I sincerely can't thank you enough. This was a fascinating conversation. We did tie it to reality TV in one way or another. And everybody, please go check out all of Cece's social media, YouTube, TikTok. It's all Guided Inspiration, right? Is the handle for all of them?
Guided Inspiration, yeah.
Check it out.
Except for my website is guidedinspo.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Perfect. And we'll have you back on real soon.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. This was the best.